Let's create a die that we're going to apply to our 90-gram paper. And I've got a bottle, well, yeah, a little container here with some really hot water from the tap. And it is roughly 3 centimeters worth of water. And I've got 2 strips of double-sided doublet here. This is red wine and this is aqua royal. And I'm going to be adding both of these strips to the warm water. And add that as well. The strips that I'm adding are 12.5 centimeters tall by 6.5 centimeters wide. And I'm just going to let that sit for a minute. I am going to grab a little bit of coffee. I've just got some instant coffee granules. Let me just scoop some up here. I'm adding this to the mixture, probably like half a teaspoon worth. I don't want this color we're creating to look too fresh, and when you add the coffee it just tends to give it a more earthy tone. So I'm just going to mix that nicely together and just let it sit for a moment. It's always a good idea to have a test piece of paper on hand. I'm going to bring in a piece of my 90 gram. I'm not going to be outstretching this paper before I color. I'm literally going to be applying this color to the unstretched paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this crepe that's in here, this doublet that's in here. And I'm just going to test it on this piece. I'm not even removing too much water from the sponge. I'll push down. So I wanted to, I don't want this paper to be too crinkled as it's drying. That color looks good to me. If you find it's not quite the color you're wanting, you can always go in and add some more of your doublet. But I'm happy with that color. And just kind of touch it. I'm not even lifting it or handling the paper at all. I'll just be adding front and back. We're going to set that aside and I'm going to see how that color dries to see how it looks. But you can see the color. It's this gorgeous earthy tone, which is very, for me at any rate, it's very reminiscent of a dried Bougainvillea. The color tends to fade from quite a, like this one here, it goes from quite a bright color to a more muted tone. So you can see it will work really well. And this is the result if you do not add the coffee. So it's using the same paper, the 12.5 by 6.5 strips of aqua royal and red wine. But if you don't add the coffee, you can see how it yields a much brighter tone. And so you have room to play. Whichever color you want, or you could do a combination of both. It would look absolutely gorgeous. I've just cut from the roll a piece that is 11 centimeters wide. It was just a random offcut. And what I'm going to do is, let's just line these up. I'm going to be providing you 3 different size petals or bracts, and so I would go in and just cut each strip to the length of your tallest bract, so that way you're not working with multiple strips of paper, like in terms of multiple sizes. So it keeps things really easy. It's all the same width, and you can decide if you want to make all large Bougainvillea, or you can make smaller ones. You can trim the other 2 within this size. So I just found that this method is a little bit easier. So as I said before, we're not outstretching. So you can see that piece there, that piece there. We're just going to lay them out. If you let them bunch up too much, you'll get a lot of, I mean, this is quite a mild version, but let me show you. So this was one. This is how the color turned out from leaving it all sort of crinkled up on each other. So I don't really want that for this. I mean, you could use that for sure, but on what we're doing and creating these dried versions, we want it to look quite not uniform, but we want it to not be as drastic as that. So I'm just going to go in again. I'm leaving a lot of that color in the sponge, and I'm just going to press down at the top, let it sort of work its way down the paper. The crinkling is fine, and as it gets a little bit drier, I will sort of spread it out a little bit so it's not so creased, because I do not want the drastic lines in this one. But again, if it's something that you really like, then perfect. Just move these ones for a sec. And you can just see how much that the paper is already spreading across my tray. So I'm just going to move these pieces for the moment and sort of pull it out a little bit. I'm going to hit the edges there. And I love using these sponge brushes. They really do help to apply the color in a much more efficient way. So again, I'm just going to pull that out. You can already see the lines from where that creping was. I don't mind if some edges are darker than others, but I do not want too much of a drastic lines of color. I don't mind if there's darker patches, that's perfect. So stretching that out. I will show you some of this other paper that I dyed. I literally had to kind of discard the paper just because this was okay, but the lines tend to dry quite in quite crazy patterns. So as I said, just be aware, and also it's why I'm cutting shorter strips, so that I'm working with something a little bit more manageable. So you can see from here how much that paper has expanded, so bear that in mind as well. I'm going to lay this one on top, and I'm just going to again press down. And a little of this paper goes a very long way. So these strips that we've done now, of which there are 8, I've got 8 strips, it will yield a lot of the Bougainvillea. And there'll be a lot of prep work. So we are doing this now with this paper. We're adding our color, setting it aside to dry completely. We're going to be coating it with some Mod Podge, again setting aside to dry completely. So a lot of this is just prep work, so it can be managed over a couple of days if you want to. Wear gloves as well if you don't want to stain your fingers. I don't mind the staining, to be honest. So let's go again with these strips. And once these have all been done, I will go and hang these strips up, or because it's so cold here, I will just start to dry them quite quickly with a hairdryer to ensure that color doesn't settle too quickly into all those lines, yielding a rather interesting and crazy result. But this really is such a beautiful color, and just adding a little touch of coffee granules really makes a very big difference in giving colors a more earthy appearance, a more earthy tone. I'll lay that across there. And again, just stretching this out. And then we're going to just set these aside to dry. I'm going to be using the hair dryer to expedite this process. And another option as well is, if you're doing these strips, to add some, deepen the color as you're going along. If you want the paper to sort of have different depths of color, so instead of using this mix now, I could add more of that doublet to it. I could add a little bit more coffee, so all the strips are varying shades. So that's another option. But for now, I'm going to go and set these, or go and dry these with a hair dryer, and I'll meet you in the next section. Okay, so all our paper is dried. The color came out so beautiful. You can see there's a lot of variation in the paper, which is great. It's kind of very subtle, but it's going to just give a really natural overall look. Some of this came out sort of looking marbled, which is also fine. We can always cut around those if we don't want to include them. So you've got lots of strips to work from and to utilize and to choose from. I wanted to show you a part of the process that generally happens for me, where I think of new things as the project is evolving. And so what happened was, obviously creating these beautiful strips, I just wanted to create a little bit more variety in terms of the color of these strips. And so I had some of this dye left over in our glass jar, and what I did was I added just another small section of the red wine to really deepen that purple color, and the result is this really gorgeous and deep purple. So you can see, I mean, some of it came out a little bit more subtly, but it is definitely darker than what we had originally dyed. So I just want to show you in terms of how you can achieve just a little bit of extra color depth by adding a little bit more of your doublet to the dye. So I'm going to be using this combination of colors as well. Just wanted to show you how that looked. And then I had some coffee left over, and I had some of our purple dye left over. And so I thought, instead of discarding it, I would use it to create strips as well, and maybe add all of these interesting colors together, some looking a little bit more dried than others. And this is a result of just pouring coffee over one of the paper strips, and I love how that turned out. It's a very like a latte color. So I did that. So I literally just lay the strip down, poured the coffee over, and then I set it to dry straight. So I smoothed out all wrinkles over a drying rack, just like that, to dry. The second thing I did was taking some strips, I dipped it. You can see the color difference. Let me just try and find an untorn part. You can see the color difference between this and this. So with this one, I literally, you can see a darker edge here as opposed to here. I folded up the strip like that. I dipped half it in our purple dye. I dipped the other half in the coffee, and then I set it to dry with the purple side up at an elevated angle so that the color would run down. And then as that was happening, so it was set like an angle, I poured coffee all the way down to really just mute and blend those tones. So there's a bit of purple that comes through, but it's not very harsh. It's very, very, very subtle. But you can see these strips, by comparison to just the coffee, again, just adding variety. So even all of these colors together yield a very beautiful and interesting result. And so I'll show you the bracts that I've already made, and you can see how these colors come into play. So this is one that I've used. Let's set this aside. So this is one I have used our original dye, and you can see the color right there. This one I have used with one of those darker strips. This one I have used with just like a coffee strip. And this one here, well, I should get this one here, it's a little bit more intense. I have used a mixture of the coffee and the dye together. And when you put them all together, you see here what a beautiful and interesting, and just creates a beautiful, interesting profile. So when we put our branches together, I'm going to be combining these different colors in bundles, and I think overall it's going to create just a very interesting look. So you can even go almost like an ombre if you wanted to, so it just gives you more variety. You can also, if you wanted to, just stick to one color or just stick to two colors. It's totally up to you, but I just wanted to share that as I was creating, I was inspired to try something different, and I was inspired to try add a few more shades in to our overall finished piece. And if you want to do the same, that is how it's achieved. The next part is quite interesting. We're going to be creating quite a translucent look to our Bougainvillea, and there are various ways that you can do this. So I've spent a lot of time experimenting to get a look that I feel is the most natural, but again, it's totally up to you to use your discretion to experiment, to see what's going to work for you and what's going to look most realistic, or what's going to look the most like what you are wanting to make. So I've got these strips here which I absolutely love. I've used pan pastels to color these, and then I've just literally coated them in a regular Mod Podge. And just to show you, the paper is really see-through, and also very strong. So that is one of the main reasons that I am coating this paper, is to add strength to it. Otherwise it's quite a brittle, not brittle, but it's quite a delicate paper that breaks very easily. So with using Mod Podge and just brushing the color on, it's created also just a very beautiful and natural looking coloration. And the bracts will be very see-through, as you can see. I'll show you here on this one. I've created, with using that technique, very see-through bracts, which looks beautiful. Here's another one that was just had extra color added with pan pastel. Here's another one too, where it is coated front and back, very translucent, but it also looks very natural, so I love that. Just also using different colors and with pan pastel, mostly with these. But the most important thing is, although the thing to note here is that this paper has been covered back and front with regular Mod Podge. But then I found that it was too translucent. I didn't want it to be too see-through. As with the natural, if I show you here, as with the real thing, you can see here that it's got a bit of see-throughness to it, but it's not completely transparent. So I wanted to work with that a little bit more, and so I used some matte Mod Podge, and I got this result, which is really pretty. But I found that the color was just too dull, and so that wasn't working. But this was coating back and front with the matte Mod Podge, and then I found this was coating just one side with the matte Mod Podge, and I loved that look. I felt like this was most representative of the dried specimen. If I bring them up, You can see the texture, the kind of sheen on it. All of it is very, very, very similar. So that was the method that I am going to be showing you now on this. This is just some plain white that I haven't added any color to, but just to show you the see-throughness of it. It's beautiful, and for sure you can make gorgeous bougainvillea from it, but it was just too transparent. This one as well, you can see it's super, super transparent. So that is not going to work for what we want. And if you want something that is the most realistic, I'm going to show you now how I'm doing that. So now we're ready to laminate our strips, and I've got a little bit of matte left. I'm nearly out, and I can't seem to find any stock of it, but it's fine. I should hopefully have enough. If not, I will use the satin finish Mod Podge. I find that both of those will yield a much nicer result than using just a plain Mod Podge. So if you look here, these strips have been done with the satin finish, so it's yields quite a nice result. But yeah, I think it's a little bit better than using just the regular Mod Podge, just in terms of giving you a little bit of translucency, but not too much. And I'm using a sponge brush to apply it, as I find it gives a really nice thin coat, which is what we want. We don't want to saturate this paper. So I'm just going to cut these strips down to make them a little bit more manageable. Okay, let's just start with this one. So I'm going to look and see front and back which color I prefer, if you have that option. Okay, so I'm going to take my sponge brush, just dip a little bit into the Mod Podge, and I'm literally just going to scrape it along this way. These strips are already quite outstretched, and by doing this I'm just making sure that I'm getting all that creping, any additional creping out. So you can see it's just kind of smoothing that paper along. So you can literally see the difference between this section and the section that hasn't been done yet. I'm just going to just bring it across. And be careful with this section as well, or this part. We don't want to tear the paper. And you'll probably have noticed when dyeing it how super fragile this paper is. It tears super easily. And the same thing with the glue. So I'm just trying to add just the lightest coat possible. And on this, see, I've already torn some off, so be careful about your finger as well being on the glue. Just lift it gently, and I'll tap it down if I notice any parts that don't have glue. Open it out, and I'm going to hang it up to dry. And we're going to keep going. I'll do one of these strips as well. If it makes things easier, just cut these into more manageable pieces. So even if you cut that in half and work on just strips that are that size, go for it. But the thing is to laminate whichever side you wish to be showing, because the laminated side is going to be the outside of our bract. So if here's our flower, the outside will be laminated, the inside is unlaminated. And you can see I had a little bit of a hole in there, and I just left it in there just to add a little bit of interesting detail. So if you have a little bit of holes in your paper, not to worry, you can actually make that work for you. So I want this to be showing on the outside, and so therefore I'm going to be laminating this section. And I'm just gently sort of brushing along, giving a very light coat. It's smoothing out the paper as I go. Remember that by adding this glue now, it is going to be strengthening our paper. So if possible, try and make sure that every part of this side is covered in our Mod Podge, and it's easy enough to see if any parts have been left out. When you hold it up, you'll be able to see any sections that don't have glue on, and it's a good idea just to go in and make sure that it's all glued, as when you are creating your brackets it could cause weakness and it will tear. So where you can, make sure it is all nicely evenly coated. And I'll go right to the edge as far as I can and keep just enough for me to grab the paper unlaminated, so I can handle the strip without tearing it. I'm dabbing and then I'll be smoothing it out. You can see there's a section that needs to be dealt with, so I'm going to lift it up carefully and then set it aside to dry. And because we're adding such a fine coat of Mod Podge, it won't take very long to dry. So let's just, I'll have that side showing. I love these coffee stained strips. They are so beautiful. And you can see over here as well, some of the paper didn't dye. It's white still, but I'm going to leave that in because again, it adds just a beautiful, interesting visual. So go ahead, get all your strips prepared, let them dry properly, and then I'll see you in the next section. I've got a method for creating a very simplified center, but they are very pretty. Let me just get the other one out here. So because we're creating these dried Bougainvillea, we're not going to be creating the little flowers inside. We're obviously creating a dried version of these. And so for our center, I'm using some 180 gram color saddle. And you've got 3 different template sizes that I'm going to be providing you with. And they're all going to have varying sizes of stem. So for our smallest bracts, we're going to have a wire. I'm using a 0.71 millimeter wire. They are in lengths of 50 centimeters, and they are bare wires. And for the smallest bracts, we're going to be doing a wire 4 centimeters long, 6 centimeters long for the medium size, and then 8 centimeters long for the largest size. So for this one, I'm going to be creating a medium size center, but the process will be the exact same for all of these, and I will give you their varying measurements. But for the medium size, we're going to be cutting a piece that is 6 centimeters long. So I think I've already got this piece over here that is 6 centimeters long, and it's completely outstretched. I'm going to fold it over to a section that is 2 centimeters wide. A little bit more down. That's good. 2 centimeters. And if I just show you here quickly, this is what each bract in essence looks like, and this is what we're creating right here. So I'm going to be measuring out a part that is 2.5 centimeters. So I'm going to fold it over there. Let's get a really good fold. So this top section here is going to be what we're creating right over there. Where we've got this line here, I want to create another small line, about maybe 0.3. So I'm going to have a double line. Let's just fold that over there. It doesn't have to be very big. It's just so I know where to cut to. So now I've got 2 lines. One's over here, and the next one is over here. So I'm cutting about 0.5 centimeter up to that first line there, and trimming it down, and roughly about the same on this side. Now my reason for doing this is that the stem that comes out of these flowers is so small. So let me just show you quickly on the real thing. So you can see they're all attached together, but the stem coming out is quite thin. So this part here is going to wrap around our wire and create a beautiful, nice and thin stem for which to attach onto our main stem when we attach our bundles together. So you can see here that it's got a beautiful narrow stem that comes out. Let's get a real one here again. So you can see it's just mimicking that. And on this top section now, we've got this first line here from this side. I'm going to cut down 3. So 1, 2, and 3. You can see it's cut to that first line, and I've got this cut up to that second line. And this is going to be our, it's going to be these little centerpieces right here. They don't have to be even. So we're going to go in here with just a little bit of glue. As I said, this is going to be a very simplified center, but it's going to be very, very effective. So when you're looking down into the bracts, you're going to see these beautiful dried centers. I'm going to hold it here at the base, just so I don't tear it, because the glue is making this paper quite delicate now. I'm going to fold just a small bit over the top, just a small bit, twist it again until it's well stuck down, and I'm going to grab my pliers and I'm going to squeeze, creating something that looks like that. Do it again with the next one. Holding the bottom quite securely so it doesn't tear off, and don't twist too much. I'm going to fold it over the top, twist it again, I'll let that one tack up a little bit more. Just press down, press down. And what that is doing is just giving you this little bit of a rounded top right there. So once that is done, we're going to add glue to the bottom section now. Again, not too much. I'm going to spread it. I'm going to sit my wire right in there just below where we cut these 3 pieces, and I'm going to roll the wire inside, making sure to really get it on tightly and sort of really compress it so it's not too bulky on that wire. Secure these 3 together as well, make sure that they're really well secured together, and bring them out a little bit, open them up. You can squeeze some of these a little bit more together, these tops. And then again, just really press that down to create a really nice, neat, narrow stem. And we've covered this now, so we don't have to cover any more of the stem. It's done. So it's really just expediting our creating process. And that's all you're going to do for these centers. So create as many as you will need and let those set aside to dry, and then I'll see you in the next section. Okay, the next thing we're going to be doing is creating our bracts. And so what you're going to need is your centers. You can see we've got our small, our medium and large, and we're going to need our templates, and we're going to need the paper that we're going to be using. So I'm just going to take a piece, stretch it out, and I'll start with creating the 2 larger ones. So I'm just going to place my template on and fold it over. So there's 3, 4, 5, and 6. Trim this piece off. You can always keep this aside if you need to create an extra petal or create an extra bract, should I say, on your smaller size. We're going to cut around. Cut up. Move this section up. And around. And although the template looks quite sharp, what we're going to do is just, I'm just going to smooth this edge out right here. I'm going to just cut a rounded, slightly rounded top. I don't want it too pointy. So there's our petals for that. When you're looking at each bract, you'll notice you've got your shiny side, which we covered with a Mod Podge, and your uncovered side, so it'll be a lot more matte. And what we're going to do is, there's 2 ways in which to create these. So on this one, you can see I've created quite a smooth looking Bougainvillea. You can also go in and add some texture to give it a more aged appearance. So I'll be showing you how I do both. The first thing to do is determine which one's got the glue on, so that'll be your outside. We're going to just cup it just ever so gently. We're going to fold it in half. The thing is that you want to get the top edge matched up. So I don't mind if it's overlapping there like that, that's fine, as long as the point is quite, it's sort of folded up to that point. So we can leave it like that and attach, or just sort of stretch it out a little bit to give it some shape. So there's one. Find your dull side, which is this one. Always the glue side out. Really get a really good crease in there. And you could fold it inward if you want to. There's the dull side. Stretch it. Fold it in half, get a really good crease, can just leave it as is as well. It's perfectly fine. And this is the beauty of the center. It's going to make the next part so easy, but also it will look exactly like the original, well, the actual plant, the way that it is attached to these stems. So if you see what I've done here, let me get one. It's attached the exact same way. And we're doing this in a very simplified manner so that you can make many of these very quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our hot glue and we'll go to about halfway up. So I'm going to take some hot glue, a very thin line of it. I'm pushing the nozzle against that little calyx, and then we're going to take where it's curved in there, place it on the wire and seat that in and pinch. So that's all we're doing. I'm then going to fold those two sides back and do the same with this one. So I'm going to add my line of glue to halfway up, seat this part here where it goes up on the wire, and then put that calyx on there. And again, we're folding both back now to reveal the third one. And we're going to do the same thing. Just add our hot glue halfway. Place that on there. Push down and pinch it. And then when we grab our bottom ends, just like that. Remove any glue strands. You can move these around a little bit till you're happy with placement. And there's one done. So let's go ahead and do the second one. This one we're going to crumple up. So again, the unglued side, give it a bit of a stretch. We're going to fold it in half. We're going to crumple it. I'm holding down here so it stays flat, and I'm just going to twist it around, unscrumple it, secure that line in again, that spine, and then open it up, and it gives beautiful texture. You can open it a little bit more so it's not so textured if you want. So there's one. So look for the matte side. Sometimes it can be quite tricky to tell. There you go, outstretch it, fold it in half. Going to just really press it down. So I'm just like sort of really like I'm crumpling it up to throw it away almost. It looks like that. And I'm just going to again straighten out that spine. Open it up, and it gives some beautiful texture. There we go. And the last one. And then we're going to go in, make sure that these are all nice. They'll be quite rigid now. And we just want to make sure that they're all out and nice and straight. We're going to take our hot glue from the base going up halfway. We're going to place that cut section against the wire, the main stem, and then push it up and pinch it closed. So basically it's sort of pinching this little calyx into this seam right here. And then we're going to move it back to make room for the other ones. Just make a note to line up the bottoms. I'll show you what I mean by that. We want to keep these bottom edges as close together as we can. We don't want them too staggered. They need to be attached at the same level. Again, if we look at the real thing, you can see there can be slight variation. But they're all pretty much attached at the same point. So that's what we're aiming for. Okay, so we'll move these two back, expose this calyx. I'm going to add our hot glue halfway and place that on there, bring it up and secure it. And then you can adjust these accordingly. But to make sure that they're all facing together, each bract is sitting comfortably alongside the others. So just like that. So you can see the texture difference, which again is going to add such a beautiful visual element to our finished branches. So let's go ahead and make a medium size together. So it's the same thing. I've got my 1, 2, and 3, and you can see just the color difference, how absolutely beautiful that is. So again, I'm just going to stretch it out. Some glue off my hand. Fold it in half. Set in that seam, and the reason that we're setting in that seam is because we're taking a brown marker and we're going to be highlighting that spine. So you can see over here how that spine's been highlighted, and so we need a really good crease in order to do that. And on the real thing you can see that the spine is a lot darker, it's quite visible, and so that's what we're going to be recreating. Even on one, if you've got them as different colors, it's also perfectly fine. I'm going to straighten out these little calyx, adding our glue from the base halfway up. You're going to seat that in and then pinch and then pull back, and then we go the same, hot glue halfway up, seat that in there, press that in and press it together. Okay, that one didn't actually glue where I wanted it to, so I'm just going to quickly pull it off before that hot glue is totally dry. Another thing, if you wanted to, bend it out, bend it backwards to give you, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to add the glue here. And this is going to ensure, and then bend it forward to secure. So if you are struggling to line these up, let's just get this one out. So we folded that spine. This is a glue side out. If you want to help with lining them up at the base, take this bottom edge, fold it backwards so you can see our crease is this way. Fold it on that same crease but this way, the opposite way, just so that you can glue it on like that, and it gives you better control in terms of visualizing where that is going to be attached. So you can do it that way if you're not too comfortable with lining up those bottom edges. So I'm going to put that on there and then bend it forward, and then make sure that all those pieces are at the same level at the base. And then you can go in and just bring those back around. Again, set in that spine. And even with the two bracts being slightly darker than this one, it just gives a beautiful visual element. Sort of pull them out and style them as you want them. Just remember to keep that center spine like really nice and defined. So there's our small one. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add some color. And before I do the spine of the Bougainvillea, I wanted to show you. So these are what they look like without any color. So let's grab one here. So you can see what it looks like. I mean, that's beautiful and perfect as is. You could just utilize that. If you want to give it a more of a watercolor feel, you can see on these, I've just added an edging with a marker and using isopropyl alcohol to just really create some very interesting edges to our Bougainvillea. So you can see here too, it looks a little bit weathered and aged just because of the color put on. This one just looks a little bit more vibrant because added a bit of a brighter purple color to the outside. So that's what we're doing to give these a watercolor feel. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can leave them just as is and they will look perfect. So let's get started. I'm using this chestnut brown for the spines, and it's a very simple process. You're just going to open it up, and where that crease is, I'm literally just going to run that up just like that. And you can see it just adds a really nice, interesting bit of dimension to these bracts. So just going in like that. And then on the ones that are kind of crinkled, I'm just going to make sure that I have got a definite line from which to follow. There we go. And that's all I'm going to do for that. When it comes to adding a watercolor sort of look to the bracts, it's just a very simple process and it is purely optional. But just to show you on this little crinkled one, I've used some yellow ochre around the edges. You could also use, this was the vivid purple on the edges, just to show you what they look like. On this one, I've used a combination of the yellow ochre and pale pink. And I'm just going to show you now how super easy it is to add some sort of a watercolor appearance to your bracts. This one, I've just added the pale pink to the edges just to give it a bit of an interesting appearance. So let's set those ones aside for now, the ones that have already been treated. And on our branches that we're going to be making, I'm not doing every single bract this way. I'm choosing just a few to give a sort of watercolor appearance to. Again, just for a bit of visual interest. So I've got my 3 here that I'm going to be adding some color to. I've got just a little recycled plastic bottle that I use. I'm adding some 70% isopropyl alcohol. You don't need very much. I've got my paintbrush and I've got my markers. So I found that this pale pink is such a beautiful color to add to our coffee treated bracts. It just gives a really beautiful, soft and subtle coloration, and it just really blends it in with this purpley tone that we've got going on already. So what I'm going to do is I'm just taking my wider broad edge and I'm just going to be running it along the side of the bract. It's just very, very, very subtle. And I'm not necessarily going all the way down. You can if you want to. I'm really just hitting those sort of top edges. This is something you could also do prior to constructing your bracts or your Bougainvillea. I'm going to dip in the brush into the isopropyl alcohol, and then I'm just going to tap the edges that I've painted or I've used the marker on. And I'm just going to make sure that front and back receive some of this alcohol. And using the isopropyl alcohol means that it will dry a lot quicker as well. So that's great. I'm just going front and back, because remember the inside is not coated in Mod Podge, so it is going to react slightly differently. But there we go. Just very subtle. You can see just how subtle that color is, but it gives such a beautiful element, almost like very reminiscent of watercolor. Remember now, as you've wet these, the outsides are going to be tacky, so as you're drying these, don't dry them too close to another flower. Just set them aside with a bit of decent spacing. And then on these ones, I really do like using the pale pink and the yellow ochre. Marigold is also fantastic for this. You could also go in with your chestnut brown if you want it to look really sort of aged and vintage. Just experiment, create a few, and then just test out and see what colors look best for you. So in this one, I'm going to be doing a combination of this vivid purple. So again, I'm just going to go just as gently as I can down the sides or the edges of the bracts. We could do this to every bract if you wanted to. I'm only doing a few. I'm going to go in now with my yellow ochre, just over that. Again, it just sort of really gives an earthy tone, which looks so beautiful. And since we are doing sort of dried Bougainvillea, I think this color lends itself very well to that. But if you use this vivid purple on its own, it will give you quite a beautiful, vibrant pop of color. So again, now we're just going to go in with our isopropyl alcohol. We're trying not to get that spine. So I'm literally just going on and I'm rubbing the back, making sure that alcohol really just gets in well where I've added the marker, and on this side, front and back. You can always press it on a surface and just sort of add the isopropyl alcohol that way. These are going to curl out, but not to worry. They will, you'll be able to shape these and get them nice and straightened. So there's our second one. And I'm just going to set it aside to dry like that. And then I'll show you here for this one. If I add the chestnut brown, if I was doing a sort of very vintage arrangement or bridal bouquet, I would definitely stick to this color. So again, just going in with the isopropyl alcohol, making sure those edges all receive some. There you go. That just gives a very delicate edging. And there we go. So you can see the difference between the two. And it gives a beautiful sort of very aged and dried appearance. So go through and see what color markers that you have. The ones that I have used on this are the deep olive, the marigold is beautiful, the chestnut brown, the pale pink, the yellow ochre, and the vivid purple. So just go and see what you have. You can make them very modern colors, you can make them very vibrant colors, very muted colors, or just leave them as is. But that is how we're going to treat them, to give them a bit of a watercolor edge. The next thing we're going to be doing with our bracts is putting them into beautiful branches like this. So I've got two different size branches. One has got 5 sets of 5 Bougainvillea on, and this one's only got 3 sets of 5. So I'm just going to set this aside for a moment. And what I've got is I've just sort of taken 5 different bracts of different sizes. Some are tall, some are shorter. They're all different. Some are actually all the same size, some are all the same color. It just, you use your discretion. I've got a 16 gauge wire that I'm going to be using, and these wires are already 50 centimeters long, and I'm going to cut them down to 30 centimeters. Which means I have pieces left over. Let's see here. I've got 2 pieces left over. They should be 20 centimeters. This one's slightly shorter for some reason, but that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by bundling our Bougainvillea together. So I've got some strips of 180 gram. I will get the color for you, and you can use floral tape if you want to. You can use a dark as well, like the saddle color for this if you wanted to. You can see that all the bracts are still the dark brown, but just with this lighter color, just gives it a sort of more antique look, which I really love. But feel free to utilize whatever you want to. I'm going to start with a tall, one of my large bracts. Again, you can start with a small one if you want to. I'm leaving a gap at the top. So I'm leaving the dark brown exposed stem about 2 centimeters or thereabout. And I'm just going to start wrapping that around. I'm going to join in a small one, bending it down almost again at that 2 centimeter mark. We're just staggering it down the branch. I'm going to go in with a large beige one and just wrapping quite tightly. So the aim really is to have all your sets looking slightly different. I'm going to wrap down, and then I can see there's quite a bit of a gap here, so I'll add my last small one right there and bundle all the way down. I'm really just going to make sure that that is well glued down, and then I'm just going to press in. So I'm going to use my pliers. I'm just going to pull these back a little bit. Bend some of them up if you need to, just to create a little bit of natural movement. And we just set that aside to dry. And we're going to do another one. So some of these have got no watercolor features on them. Some have. So some are textured, some are smooth. And that's exactly what we want to achieve, is just a really visually interesting looking branch. So on some of these you could leave them all quite bad bunched up together like that. That's not a problem. But I'm going to move some out and bend some. So you can already see how beautiful these are going to look together going down a stem. We've got our 30 centimeter 16 gauge wire, and we're now going to create one of these beautiful stems, adding all our little bundles onto it. We're adding 5 bundles of 5. And just to say as well that if you wanted to add bundles, make bundles of 4 or 3, absolutely, that would be beautiful. So I'm just going to again add my tacky glue. I'm going to start just below the top of it, twist up, and then twist back down. Make sure it's nice and coated. So I'm leaving a top here. It will be 1.5 centimeters before adding my first bundle. So I'm just going to bend it slightly. I'm going to go around, bring that crepe paper through, around and through, just to give it a more natural looking attachment. Add our tacky glue. Going around. I'm just going to add some more glue just to that end right there. So now I'm going to add a branch on this side. Again, I'm just going to bend that down for ease of attachment. Going around, going over and through, around, over and through. Adding some more glue as I go. So now I'm just going to go in and just rub that excess glue over that join, which is just going to secure it. I'm going to go down. So now so I've got one this side, I've got one this side. I'm going to add one on this side now. Bending that down. One full rotation, then I'm going through and pulling it down. Another full rotation and pulling it down, and then wrapping. And as I'm adding these stems, it's thickening this wire as well. So the wire has gone a bit thinner here. So I'm just taking this piece back in. It's really very tacky still. So I'm just going to add that paper in there just to kind of bulk that up. I'm now going in to add a branch this side. There we go. If your hands get tired doing this, give them a break. This is very, very, very strenuous work. Holding all these wires together, your hands can get really, really tired. So do remember to take some breaks in between if necessary. There we go. So stretch that around again and go back in on this side. I'm actually going to go in one more time just to add a bit of variation. Add some more glue as we go. And while I've still got glue on my hands, I'm going to add it up here where that was just all attached. Going to go back in. You can see where that wire ends right there. I'm going to add a bit more crepe tape just to thicken that up. So I don't want to add that branch too high up. So I'm just going to add my glue, break it off, go back in, wrap, and you can see how that's thickened up that stem. You can't even tell where the wire's ended. And I think I'm going to add this one in over here. Just bend it down a little bit more. Go around, through, round, and through, and then bring it down. And again, just going to go over that with the glue that's on my hands. Make sure it's sitting where I want it to. And then go in with another piece just to bulk that up. So I love leaving a bit of I love leaving quite a decent amount of stem at the bottom, just because if you want to turn this into a flower crown, you could use this to sort of intertwine and make that flower crown. If you wanted to add some more branches, you could create a fuller branch. So I do like to leave the ample wire at the bottom of my stems just to give me some options. And then once this is properly dry, you can go in and bend these branches to create a bit more of a natural movement. I also like to just bend this little stalk bit here. I like to just bend it like that, just for a bit of visual interest. So there's our stem. Then for our shorter wire, our 20 centimeter that's left over, I'm going to be adding 3. So I've got my 3. Just for a smaller stem. to give us some options, and if you're styling this in a vase, it's going to look absolutely beautiful. So again, I'm just going to wrap up and then down again, and really just push down around that top of the wire. Add some tacky glue. I'm going to start with this small set. That broke off, but it's fine. I'm just going to keep wrapping from just below that. And because we're positioning these sort of in a spiral down the stem, we know that these stems are going to look beautiful from any angle. So even this one, I'm not getting it perfectly to the side. I'm sort of angling it more, kind of going around and positioning it just behind that first stem, but just slightly lower. So just going around. Just working with a very small piece, which is very tricky. Let's grab some more. These are going to look, you know, I'm just imagining a bridal bouquet with just sprays of these. It's going to look so beautiful, so different. In arrangements, obviously, it's just going to shine. They are such versatile flowers, and I think made this way, the potential and the options for what they can be used for really is endless. So I'm just going to sort of weave that through, pull it down, wrap it around, and then go in through this way. And again, just sort of pulling it down, wrapping it around, and wrapping it down, pressing down where we've secured it. I've even loved seeing some glue strands in this. It just reminds me of sort of spider's webs. As you find these dried Bougainvillea, and just spider webs across it wouldn't look out of place. So I'm even enjoying seeing some of those on here. It just gives it a very natural element, and it's going to be what tricks the eye into thinking that these are real. So one more little wrap here to finish off. I'm going to add my glue. And again, just sort of bending these stems to add a little bit of natural movement. Bending that forward, bending our top. And setting it inside the vase.